Greetings and welcome to today's program. My name is Warren Stokes. I'm the Director of Marketing and Sales at Avidian Technologies, the developers of Profit CRM. I'm sure most of you, or at least many of you who are on the call today, are aware of that. But in any event, I'll also post some contact information at the end of the presentation. So let's get started. This topic today is a real hands-on topic, very practical, and that is how to set up and customize Profit CRM for whatever business or industry that you're in. If you've already been set up, you might want to consider this kind of a refresher course, and it's largely about setting things up on the back end, although we will start with some topics on kind of just end user basis. So the topics that we're going to cover are creating custom views. That's something any end user can do. And you can customize it in a number of different ways, as I'll show you. We're going to be showing you how to customize your templates. And those templates will be for contact data, company, and opportunity data. And if you're using our enterprise system or have come up with another application for our CRM, then it'll apply to that as well. User permissions, a key thing. We're going to cover that. We're going to show you at least a high-level introduction or training on how to set up your products and services, which are customizable. And there's a few things that I'd like to kind of share with you as to kind of get your mind around this topic here. And one of them is just really, before you just start customizing things for the sake of it, try to define what you're trying to accomplish. Some of you might just be looking for improving your basic contact and account management function of the CRM. If you're using the full sales CRM, that's where a lot of the functionality comes from customizing templates and so forth. And if you're using our enterprise or are interested in our enterprise edition, then that will allow you to create additional customizations for other departments outside of the sales or account management. So a key part of this is really defining what you want to collect, what kind of data you want to collect. There's going to be three types of data, generically speaking: contact data, company, and opportunity data. Although the term opportunity is just a default term, it can be used to capture and track data from any kind of transactional record. I'll spend a little bit of time here on defining your processes, whether it's a sales process or post-sale or some other process, because that will actually help guide you in your customization efforts. And don't worry, we're going to get into the live training and demonstration portion of this very momentarily. But let's talk a little bit about process design. This is a key part of understanding what you're trying to do and then translating it into your customization. So a good example is creating a sales process. It's always good to create a document of some sort. Define what you want to capture. A key part of the customization for most CRMs is defining and identifying the sales stages that you're going to be tracking. You can also do things like customize the activities at each stage. But remember, just to involve all the people who are actually on the front line of this. If it's a sales organization, involve the salespeople, the sales team. That's a key concept. And then, agree on what you want to track. That's an important way to determine if you've actually accomplished what you're trying to set out. And then later you can once you've got a benchmark, you can refine and use Profit tools to troubleshoot or improve your processes as well. Just a little bit more on the process side of things. The benefits of a consistent process are numerous. From a standpoint of a sales process, it helps you kind of drive the desired behaviors. You get visibility of that. It'll help you get everybody organized and working on the same page. It'll help shorten the sales cycle because you'll start understanding how to move a prospect, for example, from one stage to the other, what kind of processes or activities are involved in doing that. At the end of the day, it's going to help you drive revenue and also help you improve your forecasting if that's something of interest to you. So we're going to start by talking about custom views. We're going to create contact, company, and opportunity views, and then I'm going to come back to some other reference material here as we get deeper into it. But why don't we just dive in and start talking about creating custom views? Let's start with contact views. If you're a Profit user, you're probably somewhat familiar with this function, but I wanted to walk through it because it's part of the how to customize Profit for your business and your industry. So one thing that you'll be able to do is there's 20 customizable fields at the contact level. These are all in addition to the Outlook contact field. So if you recall, the Profit uses the Outlook contact form, so it's going to have the full name, company, job title, city, state, zip, and so on, phone number. But what Profit does is it allows you to create up to an additional 20 fields. Think of it as just kind of collecting data. This is the taxonomy aspect of the database. In other words, how to classify, organize, sort, filter by different criteria. So one of them might be the type of contact. Your administrator at your company can define these fields, and you can also define the type of fields that they are. For example, type of contact might be a drop-down list. Are they a current client? Are they a consultant? Are they a prospect? And so on. Are they a qualified lead or not? What's their LinkedIn profile? It's a hyperlink to the LinkedIn site. Maybe you want to track things like influence rating, and you can come up with your own terminology on that. Maybe you want to know their marriage situation. Are they married or not? What's their spouse's name? What are their hobbies? Role might be different than title, so that might be a field. And then you can see that these can be date fields, they can be drop-down lists, they can be text fields. Now the basic text field is 255 characters, but there's also a memo field option, which I'll show you here in a bit on how to create that. And that allows you to put in up to 1,000 characters, which is quite a bit of content for like a bio, for example, on a contact. So while we're talking about creating these views, I just wanted to mention that you can create views, which are really just lists that can include not just the name and the company and some of the basic, address, city, state, zip, but it can also include these other attributes. So you can then sort and filter by them. So I'm going to show you a view that I've already created. Now there is a little arrow here. I wanted to point that out navigationally that allows you to expand or shrink the lower pane of additional information. So I'll just shrink that right now. Now what this is going to do, it's going to allow me to see the list of contacts that, in this case, I'm looking at one of the lists I've created. It's called Hollywood Contacts. And just to show you kind of one of the outcomes of all of this, you can create lists that are filtered by certain criteria. For example, this list is filtered by the fact that they're all meet 3 criteria. They're in California, they're in the city of Hollywood, and they're in the zip code of 90210. And that's a filter that I've created, or a set of 3 filters. Now to look at a filter in an existing view, you can go up to this little icon that if you hover over it, it says edit this view. And when I go into that, you can see the view settings that I've created. You can also modify it from here, but this is a good example of when I just look on the left here. So first of all, we'll go down to additional filtering, and I'll show you those filters that have been set already. So you can see, first of all, you have the choice of making these filters require all the records to meet all 3 criteria, or they can just be an OR filter. So it's an AND filter or an OR filter, which means that the criteria for creating the list will either be all of the criteria or any of the criteria. In this case, I've set an AND filter, so all of these contacts meet these 3 criteria. I could add others simply by placing my cursor here, and maybe I want to add another field, hobbies, and I want to equals golf. Okay, so I'm just going to edit this field. So, and we're going to get into the back end of this here in a little while and show you how to create those fields and all that. But by adding another field, then it narrows that list down even more to only those contacts that now meet 4 criteria. They're in Hollywood, California, zip code 90210, and they all have the hobby of golf. I could then, if I want, save that view by hovering over the tools and say save view as, and give it a name, my Hollywood golfing contacts, for example, which is one way to create a view like that. And remember, a view is just a list. By the way, to clear a filter, you just click the icon and whichever one you've filtered it by and click clear filter, or you can just refresh your screen either way. So that's the idea of creating a list that has filtered criteria in it. And you can see that I can now navigate between my different lists. Like I have, maybe I want to look at all the contacts in Texas or something like that. That might be an example of a list that you want to create. So to create a new view, which is one of the key concepts here, what you do is you go up here to this drop down where it says view, and there you're looking at a list, but you hover over the tools and you say create a new view. So let's just say we wanted to create a view of contacts in some particular state. Let's just pick New York for the sake of argument. So you give the view or list a name, and then you can, don't worry about this too much right now, but you can select other criteria as to whether you want the view to be defaulted by assignments, by folder, or whether they're assigned to me or all of them if you're an admin. But let's just go into additional filtering and start adding some filters here. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to start typing in the word state, and you can see it picks the field called state province. It suggests it rather. And I'm going to do an or filter, and I'll show you why. So in this case, I went or because I want to say equals NY, which is a filter one of the ways that the states are classified. But I might also say New York because sometimes the data comes in spelled out in full English there. So now I can say choose the columns that I want. So there's some defaults that come with the new view, like this type of view, but I could also say maybe I want to add a field into my list here, into my new view. So on the left are all the available fields. So I might want to have type of contact as a field in my view. When you put it in, use the arrow to move it to the right, it'll create that in the right hand column, and then to move it to the left, you simply move it up in your list if you want it to be maybe just right past the company name or something. All right, so I just added a very simple couple of filters there. They can be either in NY or in New York spelled out. And I added a column, and now we've created a new view, which are all the contacts in New York. And you can see how the reason I did that or filter is some of these in the contact field, it's spelled out, but in some of them, it's just abbreviated NY. So that's how you can create a new view. Now, the same thing happens when you're in Company Manager, which is just one of the other folders that you work with. Now, I wanted to point out just sort of a little navigational thing because you might be interested in this. So you can actually add any folder in Outlook as a favorite. To do that, you just go down here on the folder that you want, you hover over it, and you right click, and you say add to favorites, and that moves it up to your top of your list of folders. You can also move them around like I'm showing you here, just by dragging those folders around. Now, I've also done a little enhancement to my folder structure by just going into right click, rename folder, and I added 3 little dashes in the arrow symbol just because I kind of like the way that helps them pop out. I use Profit every day, day in and day out. So I like them up on top, and I have the little arrow symbol in it, but that's just naming the folder. In any event, you can now see we're in the company database, and it works the same way. You can go in and you can say tools, create new view, or you can edit an existing view, maybe by industry. So when you're editing a view, and remember, you can also save that as a view. So I'm going to say, I'm going to click the little filter icon here under industry, and it works like an Excel filter. You can expand this little box if you want. You can select all, or you can select only certain values from the drop-down list in this case, or you can actually start doing a search if it's a long list. So if I'm looking for manufacturing accounts, I just start typing in the word manufacturing, MANU, and it started picking up that that's what I wanted. So I'll click OK. So now I've done a filtered list of all of the accounts. These are companies now that are flagged as accounts. And they're all in Hollywood, California, zip code 90210, but they're also all manufacturing accounts. So now I could, if I want, I could go up here to the tools, the view arrow, hover over tools and say save view as, and I could call it, manufacturing accounts in Hollywood, California, or whatever. So these are some things that you can do just to create custom views. And also, by the way, you can have us publish those views, push them out to certain users if you want. So maybe as an administrator or a manager, you want to create some standard views. You can just let us know who the users are and what views they want from your view list, and we can push them out to those users. To get that done, just contact your account manager or your project manager if you're still in an active implementation. That is to say, you can create these views and then push them out, or we can at least for you. So those are some of the views. Now we're going to also touch briefly on creating opportunity views. It all works the same way. So you can be in a list and you can say, I want to look at all of the leads that are in a certain status or stage. I'll go into my Hollywood projects here because that's what I use for these training sessions a lot. And I'm going to say, okay, so I want to see, I'm in my view called Hollywood projects in my opportunity manager, but I want to look at only those that are in a certain stage. I click that filter, and maybe I want to look at everything that's in, stage 4 or 5, for example. I can just choose the filter I want, select OK, and now I have a new view that's not yet saved, but if I want to save it and give it a name, I just go to that little arrow again, hover over tools, and say save view as, and this could be something like Hollywood projects in proposal stage or what have you. And by the way, I do monitor the chat and Q&A function, so if you have questions as we go, feel free. If I can't get to them, again, I'll post my contact information and our company's information at the end of today's session. So hopefully that makes sense to you all. I'm going to go into the next concept here, and that would be creating views outside of the sales and account management function. So if you use Profit Enterprise, you can also manage other types of activities. Like I have, for example, a view of implementation projects. Now you may not be on this this version of it, but you can see that you can use Profit to track other things besides opportunities in this case. And if you have the enterprise system, there's a number of kind of cool new things that you could do. Like, let's say I wanted to create a new record outside of the sales department for School of Rock here. And notice I have all of these different templates for departments that we have internally. And let's say I wanted to create a client services tracking record. So this is called a project, and this is a different type of template here. And it's, again, only for the active, only for the enterprise edition of Profit. You can give it a name, project SpaceX or something. And all of these are different templates, template values and labels that you can create, like in this case, installation in progress, project type, custom report. But these are all things that would be in your business. Who's the project manager? What version of the product are they on? So, but again, these are our values that we use in a particular template, but I'm just showing you this because you can create records that track things outside of the sales function or account management function. When you're using Profit Enterprise, by the way, what you'll see is that you can not only create lists like that, but for any given record, contact, company, or account, you can see all the related records. So I've got my client services project here and so on. So throughout Profit, you're going to see this concept of related records, and that'll allow you to access any other records for that client if it's outside of the sales function. So that's how you can use Profit to track things outside of sales, customer service cases, IT projects, whatever it is that you might need. So the other aspect of Profit, and now we're going to get into how to actually do all this, is how do we create all these custom fields and how are they configured? So let's go into custom fields. To do that, what we're going to do is we're going to log into profitondemand.com. And by the way, I've shown that many times here, but you probably already know where that is. Once you log into profitondemand.com, you might want to bookmark it so you can easily get back there. Just navigating as a favorite or bookmark. So first thing you'll see when you log into profitondemand.com is this screen. So let's go in and start talking about managing these templates for opportunity tracking or whatever it is you're doing in your business. The most common is opportunity tracking. So I'm just going to click on the lower left where it says templates. Now I have a whole bunch of templates. You may only have 1 or 2 or 3 depending on your edition of Profit. Profit CRM for sales, that's called Sales CRM, comes with 1 template. But you can, with Enterprise, add as many as you wish. But let's just take a look at an opportunity template, for example. And this is where it gets into basically using Profit to customize it for your industry or your business. Let's say that you are a manufacturer, for example, and we have a lot of manufacturing customers as well as other industries, but here's an example of a manufacturing opportunity template. Across the top, you have these different tabs. All of these fields can be edited, although you'll see that I wanted to point out that status and stage, you have to be really careful with in terms of the terminology you use, like active won and lost should be retained so that it drives certain reports, but you can add other statuses. To edit one of these fields, you just click the edit button. Really couldn't be easier. You can change the label just simply by typing in something new. In the opportunity or transactional record tracking, you can also make fields mandatory, which means that you have to have that set at some value before the user can save and continue. Don't get carried away with that, but it's useful to have a, maybe sometimes you'll need a couple of fields or so that you want to have mandatory. So you can actually change that, uncheck that. And now you can see that you can edit these values here or add a value. Like if I wanted to edit this one here, I just click edit. I could change that label by typing something new in. What you see is what you get. So it's pretty straightforward. I'm not going to go through every single field, but just kind of directionally speaking, one of the things you can do, let's say lead source. You might want to add a lead source. You can do it at any time. A website, a cold call, a referral, trade show. Maybe you have some new thing you're doing, webinar, whatever, where you get leads. So you might want to add a lead source to an existing item. So you just click add item. Now I have, by preference, I like to number certain fields like this because it orders them rather than alphabetically, it orders them in numerical order, which I just will tend to say the most common leads we get are from website, for example, or cold calls. But in any event, you don't have to put the numbers in front of them. If you don't, they will sort alphabetically by default. But again, to add another, maybe another, lead type. And by the way, I just want to go back. I'm over here on the add item. So that's what I did there. And I could put, webinar as a lead source. Save, and now that's added to my list of lead sources here, as you can see. Click edit, you can now see it in there as a new lead source. So that's kind of the general idea of editing an existing field. Now you can also change the type of field that it is here in almost any of them. Status is always a drop down for logical reasons, but I'm going to click on lead source again. And right here is where you change the field type. So these fields throughout Profit can be drop-down lists, which is what I was showing you there, but they might be a text box, which is 255 characters, by the way, limit. But a memo field is like a big text box, an expanded text box, and that holds up to 1,000 characters. I'll show you one here in a minute. And they can also be numeric if you're tracking dollars or revenue or units or something like that. So any of these fields, other than just one or two, like the status, can be made into those multiple types of fields. So one of the types of fields that I've made into a memo field is, I'll go to my template that I use in sales, and you'll see that one of them is a, let's just go into this one here. There we go. You can say, I want to have one of these be a memo field. And so let's say it's competition. Rather than being a text box, I could simply make that a memo field, and it would hold up to 1,000 characters, for example. So let me show you how some of this stuff looks back in Profit. So in an opportunity, you'll see that the memo field is actually one of them I use for like capturing key information. I could put in, copy and paste stuff in here from some other source or just type it in. But this is where a memo field will hold up to 1,000 characters. And you can scroll if it gets through the farther than the one pane there. I don't know if you remember this, but you can also size these screens any way you like. You can make them bigger or smaller. You can go full screen, and Profit will remember how you last decided to save a record like this. So that would be a memo field. These are drop down. When you make them a date field, it's a calendar picker. When it's a revenue field, I can't put in alphanumeric. I'm trying to type in letters and it won't let me. So it will only let me type in numeric values there. So revenue, sometimes units if you're working in that. So those are the basic concepts of the field types. Drop down, drop downs, also useful for probability increments, by the way, date fields, numeric fields, memo fields, and text fields. So let's move into designing the company fields in here. It's a little different user interface in that you go over here to the companies, and you'll see that you can expand it. And these are the names of the tabs in the company record. So let me show you what we're going to be doing is we're going to be managing these fields here. If I go back into Outlook and Profit, there will be default fields. All of the general stuff is just, company names, city, state, zip, and whatnot. But here, these three tabs that I'm showing you here are customizable. You can actually change the names of the tab. You can have them be whatever you want. If you don't use all the fields within these tabs, you can simply make them invisible so that they don't clutter up your view. There's actually 72 total fields. Here's an example of a blank field that I've hidden. So each of these tabs can contain different types of data. Maybe you want account information. These are some good examples of customizing your version of profit so that it's what you want. Maybe you want an industry. What industry are they in? What type of company are they? An ongoing account, a consultant, an OEM, a partner, or what have you. Again, all of these you define in that interface I just showed you. Maybe you want something like their size of company by revenue range or number of employees or things of that nature. You may choose to have some of these. We capture a lot of technical data, but you might also want to put in like what's their credit limit or things of that nature. In another session, which we've done before, but we'll also elaborate on in the future, is data integration, which is part of customization, but we're not going to get into that today. But this could be where data fields are feeding in from another system. First, you have to customize them, though, so that you can map the fields out. So you can have up to 72 custom fields in the company record. I'm going to show you how to do that. It's a little bit different in that you go over here, and let's say I want to go into that tab called Account Info. So these are just all the fields. You can see that the top one is the tab name. And then I have different fields, which I can, again, make different types of fields. So this one is by text right now, but here's where I could make it a memo field, numeric, drop down, or date. Here's where you make it visible or not. If I said make this label visible and uncheck it, then that means it's not going to be visible. So that's how you would hide a field in the company record. And that works throughout profit, by the way, is the idea of making labels visible or not. So again, the tabs are listed down here. I have another tab called Financial Info. These are all the fields in it. So this is where you can have things like maybe you want a field called credit limit, and it's just a text field, or maybe you want a field called year-to-date purchases and whatever. That one could very well be a numeric field if you want to just work in kind of restrict the data entry part of that. So again, 72 customizable fields in the company record. Similarly, the contact records have 20 customizable fields, which I've already mentioned, but this is where you would go in and customize them. This top name is the tab name, custom contact profile, but you can change that. I'll go back into the contact view for a moment, and you'll see that in the tab down below, you're going to see that I can view all of the different the tabs underneath this. Hang on, I know what I was. Let me switch views here, and you'll see the tab name itself is called Custom Contact Profile, as you can see right there. So what I'm pointing out is that you can rename that tab. Some call it additional contact info or just contact data or whatever, and that's where these 20 fields reside. So when you're back in the user interface for customizing, that's where you would change that. If I wanted to edit that to something else, I just click edit by the tab name, and I can change the name of that tab. But below it are all the fields. So type of contact, this is a very important one, especially each business is different. You might have specific things that you want to have as an attribute to a person. Remember, these are all attributes to a person, not an opportunity or a company or anything else. It's about the person. So one of them would obviously be type of contact, but maybe you want to track, are they married or not? It could be a simple yes, no field, or you can do other kinds of values simply by changing that. What you see is what you get. You could make it a text field if you want. You can also use text fields to sort and filter. Good example of that is a hobbies. I like that because you can have multiple hobbies, and it's just an easy way to capture that. So, but again, click edit, and you can change the properties. Is it a text field, a drop down memo? You want to make it visible or hide it, and that sort of thing. So, by the way, when you make it a text field and you're using it for capturing multiple items, a common way to do that is just you do comma separated values. In other words, if they have 3 hobbies, golf, comma, hiking, comma, tennis, comma, and then you can see those in your lists up here, and you can then sort and filter by those like in the hobbies column, see how they're all there. But maybe I just want to do a quick query on those people who have golf in that list of hobbies. So there you go. So you can also use text fields to capture multiple values simply by separating them by commas. I'm sure you're all just crazy excited about all this, and I actually really enjoy this part of the CRM setup. So let's get a little bit more into, now we're going to switch gears and we're going to go into user roles and permissions. So users are accessed in your profitondemand.com. By the way, I've mentioned this before, but you have to be a profit administrator to even access this site here. It kind of gives you superpowers. I'm guessing many of you on the call today are admins for your profit system, or at least considering it. So you see where it says manage users, there's a number of things I can do in here. One of them would be to say, I want to just manage users in general, pretty straightforward thing. You click on the user management, and this will bring up all of your users. You probably know that it'll give you a little display of whether you have any users available, how many you've used, and that sort of thing, how many you've assigned. But one of the key things that you'll want to do is just maybe you have a lot of users and you want to search for a user. So you can just type in first name, last name, email, or department and search for any records in that department. I'll just show you my own. Now to edit a user, pretty obvious, you just click edit right there. This brings up the dialog box for editing user properties. So first name and last name are required. When you configure it, you'll find that out. There's two roles really in Profit, user or administrator, so you would set that. But what I want to get at more is these permissions over here on the left. So let's just walk down from top to bottom. Hierarchy view access controls essentially what data people can see in the context of whether they can only see their own data or data that was assigned to them, or data that is under them in the hierarchy. Peers is pretty obvious. You can anyone set as peers can see each other's data. And then peers and managers lets anyone in a peer group also see their manager data. It's completely up to you as to how you set up your individual users. But remember, if you're restricting access by one of the lower ones, they may not be able to see all the data. Cross-department access is the next thing, and this only applies to Profit Enterprise. But if you're using multiple departments like, customer service, sales, finance, you can have people in these different departments set for no access, read only, or read write, and you just select the radio button that's applicable to that department. Pretty straightforward. It'll also show you what current department. So that's one that you've already set up. That's by default. Company settings include the ability to edit or delete notes, and some options below that are they can edit or delete all notes, only the user's notes, or none at all. So I'll show you how that looks in Profit. So you can have either in contacts or companies, you can have the ability to edit or delete notes. So if you have the ability to edit or delete notes, you're going to have a button here that says edit. What that does is brings up all the entries that you might want to edit. And I'll put in a little edited note here so you can see how it works. That I edited this note, let's just say. Okay, I apply that. And now you can see the edited note in here. If you have editing permissions, you can also delete that if you wanted to. I could delete that note. And it's warning me, do you really want to do that? But in any event, that's what it looks like when we're talking about the permission of notes. All notes, only the user's own, or none at all. It's up to you. And this is a user by user setting, by the way. Another aspect of this is whether or not people can remove attachments. They can remove any attachment or only their own, only the attachments that they created in the record. Contacts are similar, but essentially there's an interesting thing where you can create a permission level that makes a user's notes private in the contact. And it's different than some of the other settings because a contact might have some personal information that you just don't want to share with other people. So they can see the contact, but not the notes that you've put in. Nice little feature. This one is a little bit deeper in terms of how this works. I will mention it though, because it does come up from time to time. And this only applies if you're having people synchronize their Outlook context into the Profit database. It can be a good thing, but it's kind of a two-edged sword, because if people start syncing their phone with Outlook and into Profit, you can get all kinds of potential contacts that maybe people may or may not have wanted to be in there. So you can disallow the ability to do that as an admin. So just keep that in mind. The general settings are how you deal with data. Very important. Actually, I recommend all users be set to none when it comes to deleting, because you can accidentally delete data, even if you're an admin or a super user. But it's still up to you. You can give people the ability to delete all data, only their own users' data, or none at all. Now, if you're an admin and you set yourself at none, you could temporarily go back in and allow you to delete data, allow yourself to delete data if you wish. But by default, I would usually select none, or only the user's data, perhaps. And opportunity settings are kind of like the other ones. They have notes. If there's notes in a record, all notes, only the user's notes, or none at all. And the same with attachments. All attachments are only the users. So these are some of the things that are a little bit more advanced on the permission level of contacts. Now, that's pretty much it on that. I will point out that you can do some sorting and filtering before I leave this screen. So you can say, I just want to filter by department. So I might want to go any department that contains that value 201. So all of these departments are named that way. You can search by email address. I could say it contains Warren. Sorry, I can't even type my own name today. Warren S, and I want only email addresses from users that contain that. So there you go. So in other words, you can search throughout these records a lot of different ways. You can also sort them, by just clicking the column header, just kind of like it works in Excel. So those are some of the functions that help you manage the users. Let's move into privileges. So this is a unique thing that I wanted to point out. Every user can have a couple of additional privileges or not. And the reason that these are privileges is that one of them allows the user to easily export any data that they can see in Profit to Excel. So that's a privilege-based thing. Now, an admin has superpowers. They don't need to have that privilege. They already automatically have it if you're an admin. But analytics isn't also a privilege, because it's, it's a management tool usually, or often. So you may or may not want people to have analytics enabled. That's the Profit dashboards that I'm sure you've heard about. By the way, if you don't have those enabled and you want any help on that, again, I'll post some contact information at the end of the program today. A key concept in Profit, though, is the concept of departments, and this only applies if you have Profit Enterprise. But this is where you can have all these different departments, and you can have two main things that you do with that. You assign a template to that department. So for example, if I go up into my client services department, you'll see the template is the Avidian client services template. It's different than a sales template. It's a client services template. To change that setting, you just simply go up here and click edit. Here are the list of templates available. I could change it if I want. You could give it a new description, what have you. And then you can also assign users to this department, or you can edit users to that department. So departments are only used again in Profit Enterprise, but it expands the functionality of Profit into almost infinite number of other possibilities for your CRM. I'm happy to help you with that if it's something you're considering or need a little bit more advanced training on. Now we're going to cover, so one of the things that we haven't talked about, and we'll wrap up with this, is we're going to cover the products and services. Let me first show you what they are. Once you've kind of the cooking show here, cooking show approach is that Profit Sales CRM has in the opportunity a function called products and services. You do have to set them up. I'll show you a little bit about how to do that today. But the idea is that you can then associate specific products and or services with an opportunity or whatever transactional record you're working on. So you'll first set up groups. So here I have different groups of products. So it's kind of like a category. Let's just say I want to have I want to select the implementation category, but these are, you create these labels. And then I want to put the line item under it. And then you can have default pricing for that. You can also have custom fields like the date that you added this to the opportunity, a description, which you could still edit. These are additional customizable fields. We call them extension fields. And I believe there's 15 of those. I've never used them all. So you might want to track who the supplier is, or what pricing tier they're on, or what type of distributor they are, or, you know, if they buy from a distributor, who that distributor is, and so forth. So you can have a ton of these fields. I think there's 15 additional customizable fields. Those are used to add line item values to the opportunity. And it's also used if you use the profit quote function, which we're not going to cover today, but just to show you another example, consulting services, I'll put in, you know, a market feasibility study for $1 million. Hey, that would be a nice sale. And you can see that I can add these, again, choose this custom fields if you want, pricing level, supplier, or whatever it is that you're trying to track. And now I'm going to add that to my list, and away we go. By the way, the values of these do, if you click this button that says update revenue, it will actually populate the revenue number in the opportunity, just FYI. So, but the main thing with products and services, you have, if you haven't already started using them, you can create them one at a time manually, but you can also import them. To import them, you would want to get our template, which is available for importing products and services. And you would be in any one of the profit folders, and you would go to the tools drop down, and you would say import. And you can see that I could import different things, profit data, template definition, and I can import product data from Excel. That's what we're talking about. So what you can essentially do is organize your products and services into an Excel format, kind of like your product catalog, and you can import that into Profit. Now you do have to create all your extension fields and everything like that. That particular subject would probably take just a little bit more training if you want to get into it. And let's see here. So that's about it for the session today. Getting off 4 minutes early, I think, but I do want to post my contact information and just some general contact information. And if you're an existing client, you should already know who your account manager is. Feel free to contact them, or just reach out to me. I'm always happy to help clients. And if you're still in implementation, you'll have a project manager assigned. So I'll post this here for a couple more minutes. By the way, this has been recorded. If you want a copy of the recording or a link to it, just reach out to me after the program today. Thank you all, and have a wonderful rest of the day.